Hi, my name's Benji and welcome to Dice vs Cards. Today we're looking at Fantasy Realms, a 3 to 6 player competitive game that also has variant rules for 2 players and all the way up to 7 players. So in the box we have a card drafting game because you're going to be picking from a certain number of cards, adding them to your hand and upgrading as you go. And also set collection, because the aim of the game is to be getting the most synergistic 7 card hand that you can to gain the most points possible. So you players are ultimate rulers of a far, far away land, and your job is to build the mightiest realm of them all. Ah, cliches. But is there more to this than meets the eye? So let's give you a sense of how this plays and whether this could be the next game for you. So the object of the game is to be the player with the most points, derived from the 7 cards they'll have in their hand at the end of the game. So starting with the first player who only has one choice, that being to draw the top card of the deck. They then add that card to their hand and then decide which one of their cards they want to discard to the discard pile. Subsequent players will then have 2 choices, that being to take the top card of the deck or to take any of the cards from the discard pile, doing the same, adding them to their hand and then discarding one back. So before we can understand which cards we want in our 7 card hand that will synergise with each other, we need to understand what each card does. So in the top left hand corner of each card is its base value, and this will equate to raw points at the end of the game, but ultimately you're looking to get bonuses from those cards as well in order to buff those scores up. The title or name of the card can be found at the top, and some other cards will refer to these as you play throughout. Then on the left hand side is the card suit. So here we have the red coloured flame suit, the purple coloured leaders, the green coloured beasts and so on. And there are 10 suits throughout the game that again other cards might refer to or synergise with. And then the body text on each card will often give you either bonuses or negatives or penalties depending on if they're paired with certain other cards. So for example, this dragon gives you minus 40 points unless it's with at least 1 wizard. And this hydra here gives you a bonus of plus 28 points if paired with a swamp. So play's going to rinse and repeat like that, with each player taking a card, discarding a card, until there are then 10 cards in the discard pile. And it's at that point that the game immediately ends and you move towards end game scoring. So at this point you all hope that you've got cards that synergise perfectly well with each other, and you'll see here player 1 has done a decent job of that, because the sword and shield of Keth are going to give bonus points for being paired with a leader here, and then the Beastmaster is going to get you extra points for being with, as you'd expect, a bunch of beasts. So you'll then take the scoring pad for each player and score up the base value and any bonuses from having that card, and do so with each of the cards to give you an ultimate and final points value. And as you'd expect then, the player with the most points is the winner. So that's an overview of how this game plays. What did I think of it? So who is this for? Well, it's a lightweight game because it's devilishly easy to get to the table and learn. It really is at its core a rummy-esque game. So if you like that sense of gameplay with a few bells and whistles on, then there might be something here for you. If you like the saying, don't judge a book by its cover, well, this is that game incarnate. Once you peel away those layers, there's some beauty inside. So you might want to consider this if you liked Majesty for the Realm, published by Z-Man Games, or Red 7, published by Asmadi Games. So the former has a larger footprint on the table than this, and the latter deals just in numbers and dispenses with that lengthy endgame scoring. So when I think about the gameplay on offer here, I think about one word, and that's contrast, and in 2 main areas. The first of which is in the mechanics. So as I've already mentioned, this is a super easy to learn game and quick to get to the table. But then at the opposite end of the spectrum, you've got what is really a deceptively complex decision making process whenever it comes round to your turn. The amount of strategizing and forward planning you have to do in identifying the best and most synergistic cards for your hand really does make for a delightful gameplay experience. And then secondly, we've got the beginning, middle and end of the game itself. So this is a swiftly paced game that's going to be over in no time. But then you've got the contrast in one of the most lengthy in-game scoring processes that you'll experience, especially for a lightweight game. But that would often be a negative, and it's not here. It's your chance to show you what you've been able to achieve in terms of the amounts of points, the amount of synergy that you've been able to create in the cards that you've picked. So those two things contrast but ultimately add up to a wonderful gameplay experience, and one that is highly addictive. So one negative I do have is in the end game conditions. It just feels too abrupt sometimes. I'm the sort of advocate of everyone getting an equal number of turns, and you're probably not going to get this playing Fantasy Realms, and it's a problem that's exacerbated in player scaling. The more players there are, the more difficult it is to judge when the game's going to end and enable you to ensure you delivering on your own game plan. So those with differing views will say, well, that's actually part of the strategizing. But the problem on offer here is it ramps so quickly from the mid game to the end game that it's so difficult to do that. I really prefer a game that allows the most number of people to say, yep, I enjoyed that, as opposed to a minimal number saying, yep, I enabled my game plan, I was able to score as many points as possible. So this is not perfect, but really the pros certainly outweigh the cons. Then when I talk about the look and feel and theme of the game, you could argue again we've got a word contrast to apply here, because this is painful to look at. I don't understand the art choices on offer here, but in slight contrast, component quality is of a decent standard. The cardstock, the pads, there's ample of them. Yeah, kind of, no, it doesn't counterbalance at all. And the theme is completely generic, as I mentioned at the top of this. But we end on a high because Dice vs Cards are going to give a final score of 8 out of 10 to this highly addictive game. However, that's it from me. I'll see you next time.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Water deep, mountain high. Ah, obscure references for the win.